witness was a former security officer at the Intercontinental Hotel. Diddy then brought out a brown paper bag full of cash.
This shouldn't exist. That's how one insider reacted to the shocking leak. Never-before-seen footage of Diddy and Cassie, allegedly released by a hotel employee. But here's the twist. No one knows how or why Sylvia Okun, whose name had never been made public until now, got access to such an intimate moment. What does this mean for Diddy? Who else might be involved? This scandal has the potential to shake Hollywood, and we've got the full breakdown. Let's dive in.
Was a former security officer at the Intercontinental Hotel. He said Diddy paid him $100,000 to fork over what he thought was the one and only copy of a video of Cassie's assault. He also heard from someone inside Diddy's business empire, the former chief financial officer of Bad Boy Entertainment. Now, he claimed everything he did for the company was totally above board. And the jury saw a $20,000 wire transfer from Cassie's dad to Diddy, which was sent back days later. A former security officer for the Intercontinental Hotel, Eddie Garcia, testified the phone, it started ringing, and a lot. The calls were from Diddy's chief of staff, Sylvia Okun. A reminder, she has not been charged in this case and has not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing. Garcia says at one point she put Diddy himself on the line, and Garcia recalled what Diddy told him. He stated that I sounded like a good guy, but I sounded like I wanted to help, and that something like this can ruin him. Garcia said Diddy sounded nervous and promised to take care of him. Garcia, he then went to his boss and told him Diddy was willing to pay. His boss suggested $50,000. Garcia then called Diddy back, testifying he was excited. He said, Eddie, my angel, I knew you could help. I knew you could do it. Garcia got the video on a thumb drive from his boss the next day, and then he gave it to Diddy in person. Garcia told the court that Diddy made him sign an NDA, and he said he even spoke with Cassie Ventura over FaceTime, saying, quote, she said that she had a movie coming out and that it wasn't a good time for this to come out.
Until just a few days ago, no one had heard the name Sylvia Okun. Now, she finds herself at the center of a growing industry scandal. Sylvia is reportedly a former employee at a high-end hotel known for catering to a high-profile clientele. Her role wasn't glamorous. She worked behind the scenes, part of the invisible workforce that upholds the promise of privacy for the rich and famous. That anonymity has vanished. Sylvia is now linked to the leaked surveillance footage involving Diddy and Cassie, raising serious questions about access, security, and how such sensitive material could have been exposed. The hotel in question hasn't been publicly identified, but sources suggest it's far from a roadside motel. It's a property known for hosting celebrities and ensuring discretion. So how did Sylvia, presumably just one staff member among many, reportedly gain access to surveillance footage from a supposedly secure top-tier system? According to industry insiders, while some hotel employees may have limited access to surveillance systems, it's extremely rare and highly suspect for someone in her position to retrieve and leak footage. Doing so would either require advanced technical skills or a major failure in the hotel's internal protocols. Sylvia's name first appeared in online discussions surrounding the leak. Though it's unclear who initially identified her, sources believe she may have been named during an internal investigation conducted by the hotel itself.
Well, how did the defense then try to follow that? Because that is some pretty compelling testimony to talk about the prosecution's case, that he was allegedly aware, that he didn't want this to see the light of day, which means potentially law enforcement would never see it.
That's right. And cross-examination was very brief, Laura. As you said, there's a ton of testimony to get into, seemingly damning testimony if these allegations that Eddie Garcia testified are all true. But all that the defense did is they pulled up this non-disclosure agreement, which Eddie Garcia told the jury that Diddy handed him, as he also handed him that bag of $100,000. And the defense, they showed a paragraph that says in this NDA, it doesn't say that you can't testify about this one day. So basically trying to show they're not prohibiting him from participating in a trial like this, but that's really not the point. The takeaway with showing this NDA is it was on company letterhead. The top of that NDA said Combs Enterprises. And there was also a clause in there that told him if he breached the contract, he would have to pay the company, not Combs, the company, $1 million.
The so-called liquidated damages. That was one of two contracts that was essentially important here. He was also testifying under immunity.
That's right. And, that shows that Eddie Garcia, at least, was...
The revelation that a single employee could be behind such a massive breach has left many stunned. Even more startling are the lingering questions around motive. Was Sylvia driven by personal frustration with her job? Was she paid to leak the footage? Or could she have been manipulated by outside forces, unknowingly caught up in something far more complex than she realized? Early reports suggest Sylvia Okun wasn't in a high-ranking position, which makes the alleged leak even more shocking. Surveillance footage from luxury hotels is usually tightly secured, logged, monitored, and accessible only to a select few. So, how did she get access? Was it granted by someone else, or did she find a way to bypass internal protocols on her own? If the leak was intentional, the consequences could be severe. Legal experts say she could face civil lawsuits from the hotel and the celebrities involved, as well as potential criminal charges for violating privacy laws. It's not the kind of risk most employees would take lightly. So, what drove Sylvia to do it? As the investigation unfolds, hotel security policies are coming under heavy scrutiny. One security consultant called it an ethical and logistical failure, noting how rare it is for such leaks to come from inside without any warning signs. But Sylvia's role, it seems, wasn't ordinary, and neither were her actions. This raises a bigger question. Was she really acting alone? There's speculation that others may have helped her, individuals who remain in the shadows. The footage itself might eventually reveal the truth, but one thing is certain, this is no simple case of employee misconduct. There's a deeper, more complex story waiting to surface.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs.
All right, for a third day, Combs' former assistant known as Mia was back on the stand. Fox 5's Lisa Evers is live outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan with a breakdown of today's testimony. Lisa.
Well, Stephen, Natasha, Sean Diddy Combs sat at the defense table, his chair pushed back a little bit, his hands in his lap, folded and completely motionless as his former personal assistant, who was using the pseudonym Mia, testified on the stand that she was brainwashed. That's why she kept texting him affectionate messages years after she left, and that even though she testified earlier that he repeatedly sexually assaulted and abused her for years. Now, late this afternoon, Sean Diddy Combs' mother, Janice Combs, came out of court walking with one of her grandsons to the black Sprinter that takes the family to and from court. All morning and for most of the afternoon, one of Diddy's former personal assistants, under the name Mia, was under tough cross-examination from his lawyers about her claims that he sexually assaulted and physically and emotionally abused her for years. There were strong objections from the prosecutors, some of which were upheld, and the tensions grew. The aggressive line of questioning, which highlighted seemingly contradictory statements about her experience working for the disgraced hip-hop mogul. Mia said she made a happy birthday video for Combs, telling him that he was one of the biggest inspirations in her life, and said, "I love you." This afternoon, she said she did it because it was part of her job, and she feared what would happen if she did not do it. Now, most of the day, she kept her head down, her long blonde bangs hiding most of her face as she spoke. She said she was speaking out not for money, but so she could look her niece and her goddaughters in the eye. Now, from the very beginning, Sean Combs' defense team has said that, admittedly, he's abused women, incidents of domestic violence, as well as having a hot temper that at times grew violent, and that he had a substance abuse problem, but that he was not a sex trafficker. So he's maintained his innocence throughout this.
What kind of hotel allows private surveillance footage involving celebrities to be leaked? That question has cast a harsh spotlight on the hotel where Sylvia Okun once worked. Though the property's name hasn't been officially released, insiders describe it as part of a luxury hotel chain known for catering to the ultra-wealthy, guests who expect anonymity, discretion, and top-tier security. These are the kinds of places that cultivate a sense of invulnerability, where high-profile individuals believe they're beyond public reach. But in this case, that promise of privacy unraveled. The hotel's security system, once seen as airtight, is now under intense scrutiny. High-end hotels typically use extensive surveillance networks, with footage stored in encrypted systems and access restricted to a small circle of cleared personnel. Even within that group, strict protocols are meant to prevent misuse. So how did Sylvia, a relatively low-level employee, manage to access and leak such sensitive footage? Security experts have floated two theories. Either she was mistakenly granted unauthorized access, or the system had exploitable vulnerabilities. In either scenario, it's unlikely she acted alone. Breaches of this magnitude often involve either help from the inside or serious lapses in oversight. Adding to the intrigue, the leaked footage isn't recent. It's believed to be several years old, making its sudden appearance even more mysterious. Why now? Was the footage sitting in forgotten archives until Sylvia, or someone else, chose to release it? And if this kind of material was stored long-term, what else might be hidden in the system? Could other celebrities be at risk? There's also a troubling detail about the footage itself. Rumors suggest it wasn't the typical hallway or lobby surveillance. The angles and locations captured hint at private, possibly restricted areas, spaces, presumed to be completely off-limits to cameras. This has fueled speculation that the surveillance may have extended into more intimate areas, raising serious concerns about the ethics and extent of hotel monitoring. Now, the focus is expanding beyond Sylvia's individual actions. Could others on the hotel staff have been involved? In such tightly controlled environments, breaches usually require either collaboration or a breakdown in security protocols. Regardless of how the footage got out, one unsettling truth remains. The places we assume are most secure might not be as impenetrable as they seem. For celebrities and other high-profile guests, the assumption of privacy in luxury accommodations is no longer a given. And perhaps the most disturbing question of all is this. If something like this can happen at one of the most exclusive hotels in the world, what else might be vulnerable?
Diddy then brought out a brown paper bag full of cash and counted out $100 grand with a money counter. Garcia said that he split that money with his boss and another security officer. And the next witness was former Bad Boy Entertainment CFO, Derek Ferguson. Now, he testified that Diddy's personal and business finances would sometimes overlap. But he said he never saw anyone help Diddy commit crimes. The prosecution also showed a statement from Diddy's bank account for his New Jersey home. It shows the account transferring $20,000 to Cassie on December 14, 2011. On December 23rd, Cassie's dad wired $20,000 into the account. 4 days later, it was sent back. And that lines up with the testimony from Cassie Ventura's mother on the stand. Recall that she said that she sent Diddy $20,000 after Cassie told her Diddy was threatening to leak sex tapes. We had no idea how instrumental and individualized attention was given by Diddy.
This was brand new information. So as you said, we have heard that $100,000 figure before that came from the government's indictment, but they had no other details in the indictment other than he paid $100,000 to try to bribe someone to get this away. What we heard today shows the alleged great lengths and efforts that Diddy himself, as a world-renowned celebrity, took to make sure that this was buried. You heard Eddie Garcia say on the stand, Diddy himself told him, this can ruin me, this can ruin my career. That gives us a clear state of mind that Diddy was in. He knew that his behavior on that was egregious. He knew it could ruin him. As you said, he called him Eddie my angel. Strange name to call someone that you've never met. Also strange for a celebrity to get on the phone with you himself. They usually have people do that for them, and he did. As you said, Christina Karam was on the phone, but she constantly brought Diddy on there. Just really an incredible picture of what Eddie Garcia testified happened, that he is brought by Diddy up to this hotel room, given a brown bag full of $100,000 cash.
A man who makes $10.50 an hour at the time.
Exactly. And then that Diddy comes out with a money counting machine, which Eddie Garcia testified, he told the jury, it seems like he's done this before. And then Diddy himself takes Eddie Garcia down the elevator and basically, bids him farewell. He pays for his valet at the hotel, and he asks him, what are you going to do with this money? And tells him, don't spend it all at once, meaning it could get suspicious. So really, again, brand new information and showing the great lengths that Diddy allegedly went to make sure.
Why now? The Diddy-Cassie footage leak raises more questions than answers. The timing of this footage leak is raising eyebrows across the board, and for good reason. For years, the relationship between Diddy and Cassie has been under intense scrutiny, part tabloid fodder, part public mystery, and always tightly managed. Now, both appear to be in distinctly different phases of life. Cassie has moved on, living a quieter, more private life focused on family. Diddy, meanwhile, remains a lightning rod in the entertainment world, a symbol of success often shadowed by recurring controversy, which is why the sudden release of this footage feels far from coincidental. Was this truly a spontaneous decision by Sylvia Okun, the alleged source of the leak? Or was it a calculated move tied to something much larger? There's speculation that Sylvia's actions weren't driven purely by impulse. Some insiders suggest external pressure may have played a part, whether from media outlets, legal strategists, or parties with their own vested interests. In cases like these, leaks rarely happen in isolation. There's usually a deeper, unseen mechanism at play. Others argue it may have been personal. Perhaps Sylvia had unresolved conflicts with Diddy, with the hotel she reportedly worked at, or with those who had access to the footage. There's also the potential of financial incentive. Timing a release like this, years after the footage was recorded, hints at a level of intent that adds complexity to an already murky narrative. The legal context only thickens the plot. Diddy has faced a number of lawsuits and public controversies in recent years, and some believe the footage could be strategically timed to intensify scrutiny or undermine ongoing business dealings. In an industry where timing is everything, dropping damaging material at just the right or wrong moment can have devastating consequences. And then there's the footage itself. While it hasn't been publicly released in full, those claiming to have seen it describe it as career-ending and deeply disturbing. Not just for what it shows, but for what it implies about the relationship between Diddy and Cassie. Far from a random leak of stolen celebrity content, this appears to be a carefully curated reveal, a raw and emotionally charged glimpse into a dynamic that was long kept private. The nature of the leak adds to the intrigue. Unlike the usual celebrity scandals that stem from hacked phones or unauthorized recordings, this footage reportedly originated from a hotel, a controlled corporate environment. That alone raises red flags. If Sylvia worked there or had recent access, why hold on to the footage for so long? Was she waiting for a moment when its release would have maximum impact? That question, why now, keeps resurfacing. Some speculate a third party may have approached Sylvia, offering compensation or leveraging her access. Others believe she could be caught in something far larger than she intended, a pawn in a more strategic move aimed at Diddy's empire. High-profile leaks of this nature are rarely random. From legal maneuvering to settlement pressures, history has shown that major revelations often surface at times designed to inflict the most damage. So far, neither Diddy nor Cassie has commented in depth. Cassie's camp has maintained her characteristic, silence, avoiding further escalation. Diddy's team, for their part, is said to be in full damage control mode, but perhaps the most unsettling part is the idea that this could just be the beginning. If one piece of footage has emerged, what else might be out there? What other moments were captured, archived, and hidden away, waiting? The full implications remain to be seen. But one thing is clear, this is more than a salacious headline. It's a moment that could reshape public perception and potentially unravel carefully maintained legacies. The footage, the fallout, and the motives behind it all are now part of a narrative that's still unfolding. And the silence only adds to the noise.
Did it that Combs gave him money to make sure this video went away. Now we know some people might call this a bribe, colloquially. Is it enough for the prosecution to say, no, this was most assuredly a type of bribe that would be a predicate crime, as they keep saying, for RICO?
Of course, it was a predicate crime in addition to the obstruction. But so what? Meaning, if someone came after me because I did something truly bad, or even alleging I did something really bad, I have a legal career. I might say, I will pay you money because you're taking advantage, you're actually extorting me. You might do the same. And if you have the other party saying, I'm in agreement, I have a movie, I don't want this coming out, when is me doing an NDA, Stormy Daniels is an NDA, and that in and of itself is not illegality? Why can't someone who has so much to lose, who's a hands-on freak, not just a freak-offs, be fully on this entire episode to shut it down? Because if that domestic violence tape ever came out, he's screwed.
I'm so glad you mentioned Stormy Daniels, because I've been thinking about this today in terms of a jury that might be all the more fluent than they probably ever would have been in New York about catch and kill, right? This phenomenon where you've got bad press coming out and you're paying a tabloid or otherwise to say, how about you just take that and it never sees the light of day? And we didn't see a RICO charge in that case. That was state court, obviously, so very different. But when you hear about that, you think about how a jury might view, well, hold on, celebrities all the time, they've got DUIs, they've got videos, they've got dirt and skeletons. Isn't damage control part of what the rich folks do?
I mean, I think there has to be a difference between damage control and seeing a potential criminal case coming down the pipe and saying, I don't want that criminal case to ever see the light of day. And that's how I see these as being two separate situations. In the scenario you painted, absolutely. If you do something that's embarrassing or could cause you reputational harm, you want to shut it down, you want to pay somebody money, that could be a contractual agreement between two people. God bless. However, if you've committed a crime and there is evidence of that crime, and you tell somebody, I want to obtain and get rid of essentially the only copy, all evidence of my crime, that to me starts looking a lot more like obstruction than just a contract.
The revelation that private surveillance footage from a place as trusted as a hotel could resurface years later has shaken the foundations of what public figures depend on for privacy. That the video reportedly shows something emotionally vulnerable only makes the situation more disturbing. One unconfirmed but widely discussed detail is the level of tension captured in the footage, an aspect that raises serious questions about the true nature of Diddy and Cassie's relationship behind closed doors. This isn't just about entertainment gossip. For many, it signals a shift in how we view public personas and the spaces they consider safe. Fans and critics alike are now reconsidering whether what once looked like a glamorous relationship was as healthy as it seemed. While much remains speculative, those who've seen or know of the footage speak to its emotional weight. The consequences reach far beyond media chatter. For Diddy, a music mogul with decades of cultural influence, this leak could intensify existing controversies or spark entirely new ones. For Cassie, who has intentionally stayed out of the spotlight, it's an unwanted re-exposure that may bring pressures she's worked hard to avoid. And that leads to the question on everyone's mind. What else is out there? If this footage has surfaced, could it be just the tip of the iceberg? The person at the center of the leak, Sylvia Okun, now finds herself in a legal and ethical storm. Once unknown to the public, she is now under intense scrutiny. Her alleged connection to the release of hotel surveillance footage may carry serious legal consequences. Hotel security systems are bound by strict privacy policies, and if laws were broken in accessing or distributing this material, Sylvia could face felony charges or lawsuits. Legal experts say that even if others coordinated or profited from the leak, she could still be liable for her role in the breach. For Diddy and Cassie, the stakes are deeply personal and reputational. Diddy, already navigating a wave of public controversies, is now facing a renewed round of scrutiny. His silence so far feels strategic, but in the court of public opinion, silence often speaks volumes. Every frame of the leaked footage becomes fuel for speculation that could chip away at the image he's spent years building. Cassie's situation is even more sensitive. She has maintained a quiet, private life since her split from Diddy, away from celebrity chaos. This leak rips open a chapter of her life she seemingly left behind. The impact on her mental health, family life, and personal security could be profound. Observers worry that this may not be an isolated incident. If Sylvia had access to hotel surveillance systems, what else might she have obtained? Could there be more footage, perhaps of other high-profile guests waiting to be released? Cybersecurity and legal experts warn that leaks like this are rarely one-offs. Whether through hacking, digital theft, or inside access, this may be the start of a broader wave of privacy breaches. At the heart of this scandal lies a much bigger issue: the illusion of privacy for public figures. Hotels, often marketed as secure havens for celebrities, now face scrutiny. If footage from such a safe space can emerge years later, who is truly accountable? Is Sylvia solely to blame, or does responsibility extend to the hotel for failing to safeguard its guests? And what about the platforms or individuals who help distribute or profit from the leak? Legal documents are reportedly already being drafted, though it's unclear whether they target Sylvia, the hotel, or others involved. But one thing is certain, this isn't just a celebrity scandal, it's a cultural turning point. It forces the industry and the public to re-examine where the lines are drawn when it comes to privacy, power, and accountability. As legal battles unfold and the public waits for statements, one looming question remains. Has this leak permanently changed the rules of privacy for those in the spotlight? This incident goes beyond Diddy and Cassie. It's a warning shot about how vulnerable even the most secure-seeming spaces can be. If hotel surveillance can emerge years later, how safe is anything? The Sylvia Okun scandal demands a deeper conversation, not just about celebrity culture, but about who holds the keys, who's watching, and where the boundaries really lie. So, what do you think? Has this changed your view of celebrity privacy? And more importantly, how far is too far?